Thank you. Can I say very sincerely, it's been delightful to be in this conference. I'm sure you've enjoyed it. The Aussies make funny films. I don't know if you've seen The Castle. It's wonderful. Unfortunately, they put the four-letter word in it, but that's Aussies. But I love the opening scene. It's supposed to be a dysfunctional family, and they're sitting around the meal table, and she comes with a sponge cake, and in his Melbourne drawl, he says, "So what's that, doll?" She said, "It's a sponge cake, love." He looks at the kids and says, "Who's go eating at the flash restaurants in Melbourne with mum doing this high-quality cuisine at home? What's that on top, sweet?" She said, "It's icing sugar." He goes, "Flip, what top chef would have thought of putting ice and sugar on a sponge cake?" Isn't that lovely? And I interviewed Rob Sitch. He's actually a neurosurgeon at Melbourne University, and he said, "That's my dad. My mum can only cook steamed chicken, steamed fish, the Italian family next door having Nokia and all the flash stuff, and he's smarter than any MRI machine." Don't you love it? I want to tell you an Australian story. A sports bus is going home after winning a major victory in sport, and tragically it goes over a cliff, and everybody's killed apart from their mascot, the kangaroo. And for days, the Australian police measure the road. It was a beautiful, fine night, no rain. How could such an accident happen? Nobody could solve it. Fortunately, there was an expat Kiwi policeman working for them, and he said, "Look, let's think outside the square. Why don't we think about this? The only survivor is the kangaroo, and there's an Aborigine gentleman down the road. He's a kangaroo whisperer. Let's get him in. Let's get him communicating." The Aussies go, "Nah." Eventually, he got the Aborigine gentleman in, gave him a cup of tea. They brought in the kangaroo. They explained to the Aborigine what they wanted to do. Kangaroo's in the cage. The Aborigine gentleman's looking at the kangaroo, and suddenly there's communication. And somehow the Aborigine gentleman gets across the kangaroo. What were the players doing, the people sitting in the seats just before the crash? And the kangaroo goes, and goes. And then he says, "What was the coach do? The one walking around talking to the players?" And the kangaroo goes, and it goes. And he says, "And what were you doing?" And the kangaroo goes. I want you never to forget that joke, because what's happened in today's society is the mascots are driving the bus. And you are here because we're going to say it's mum and dad who drive the family bus. And I want to encourage you to do that. You see, a father and a mother are the best team they could be. Isn't it wonderful that neuroscience is saying what history and Judeo-Christian ethics have always said? Every child deserves a mother and a father. You heard it from the team before me. There is a difference. You see, my lovely Mary, I walk down the hill of correction with her every morning. Sorry, she calls it the hill of encouragement and information. And it's just wonderful. That's what makes a family. I say to men, you sleep with a relationship expert. Ask her. Get her involved. Neuroscience has now found that every baby comes out of the womb looking for someone looking for them. Isn't that beautiful? I was not allowed to be at the birth of my first two children because the matron of the hospital thought I'd faint and make a bit of a mess. I was at the birth of my young son, Johnny, and when that little red wrinkly prune came out and I held it in my hand, something happened in my father's heart. It was destiny. And I want to encourage you to do that. You see, there are four governments in a nation: central, community, family, and individual. Tragically, in the Western world, we're focused on central and individual. So we now have nanny states and narcissistic behavior. We have got to get back to knowing that central government protects community, family, and individual. And it's family that is the hub, and the community makes that family work. And that is the only way it really works. I challenge parents to ask themselves, you see, what we've got in our favor is the ring of truth. What we're talking about is truth, and truth has a ring. And when you share it with people, even the most cynical, sense the ring. But what sort of parent, I say to them, are you parentis sergeant majorcus? You run your home like a military establishment. People, I'd like to meet you in the toilets afterwards. I'll sort you out. You know? Aussies are in the crowd again, Bob. You notice that? We love them. We thrash them at rugby, they thrash us at cricket, rugby league, everything else. But anyhow, that's how it goes. Parentis Sergeant Majorcus. You see, you take a Parentis Sergeant Majorcus parent. His little son, Boris, or without asking, his favourite saw. He leaves it out for 6 weeks, it's rusty. Parentis Sergeant Major gets the kid by the ear, he gets the saw and he says, "You stupid idiot. That's my best tenant saw, you've ruined it, you'll never touch my tools again." When that 10-year-old boy becomes a 30-year-old, if anything goes wrong in his life, he hears shouting. Nobody may be shouting, but he hears, "You're a drongo, you're an idiot, you're no good." Tragically, children who've had Parentis Sergeant Majorcus parents often become Parentis Jellyfishicus because they don't want their kids to have the same pain. How does a Parentis Jellyfishicus operate? He gets his son and he says, "I just want you to stand here by Daddy. You were being creative, but you've ruined my saw. Do you feel my pain?" "I feel terrible. I don't want you to worry about it, but I feel terrible." See, when he becomes a 30-year-old, if anything goes wrong in the firm, he's got the wrong boss. If anything goes wrong in his relationship, it's the wrong woman. You see, what we've got to encourage our nation is to become Parentis Backbonicus. Loving and firm. When God designed the backbone, it was brilliant. It's flexible and it's strong. And if Parentis Backbonicus says to his son, "Mate, we've got a problem. That's my best saw. You borrowed it. How are we going to sort it out?" Let me suggest, you could buy me a new one with your pocket money, or with a bit of steel wool and oil, we can restore it. Dad will know the saw will never be the same again, but the boy's learned. And so when he has a crisis with his boss or with his lady, he knows, my dad taught me there's always a solution. Family, a journey of life. Meaningful touch. Look, when your wife is giving you a hard time, take her in your arms and headbutt her. No, take her in your arms and say, "Honey, how can we work this out?" That's what men are for. We're there to support her. She'll blame you for world hunger, the Third World War, everything. She's having a bad time. Be there for her. You're equal in the marriage, but you are the protector. The spoken messages of love, children love it. You know, I share in my seminars, every dad who says to his kids, "You may want to know if Daddy loves you. Sneak up any time and squeeze my arm 4 times. Do you love me? I'll squeeze yours 3 times. Yes, I do. You squeeze me twice. How much?" And I'll go zillions. Kids love that. I was in the Air New Zealand Corrie Lounge, and a man came up to me. His daughter was going to Singapore to represent New Zealand in hockey. 21-year-old, and they just put in a suitcase zillions. It's a family thing. In our family, we encourage, assuring them of their value. See, every child wants to be a member of the team. The greatest thing Dad can say, "I'm so glad you're in my team." That's why the Italians know how to do it with celebration. On a birthday, you celebrate. You know, every kid has to say something positive about their brother or sister's birthday. When it's your wife's birthday, everybody says 3 things about Mum, and Dad says 6 things about her. And then he kisses her for 30 seconds. That's a kiss. And the kids know, hey, they're in love together. When my lovely Mary was having her birthday just a while ago, the grandchildren, we've got 11, but 3 are in New Zealand, and they were just celebrating her, and they were saying 3 things. Little Sebby, he's 5, he said, "Grandma, I love it when you hug me, I'll feel good." And then little Noah, who's 10, he said, "Grandma, when we do things wrong, you say it's all right." He looked at me like, "You don't do that." And the 11-year-old said, "Grandma, we love driving with you because it's dangerous." Isn't that wonderful, eh? You see, what that does is mean, hey, you're all important. We celebrate. Give your children a picture of the future. When your little kid says, "I could be a fireman," you say, "You'd be the best." I mean, they'd never finish up as a fireman, but they've got Mum and Dad's approval. Sir Malcolm Muggeridge, that great brain who challenged every politician in Britain, they lived in fear. Mother Teresa touched his life and he became a Christian. But he tells in his memoirs how his dad was a little slight man, a lawyer in England. Every Thursday, he'd go to visit his dad at 4 o'clock in his lawyer's office, and Malcolm's father would leap up and he'd say, "Let's do something dangerous, Malcolm." You see, he saw his dad's delight. You know, we've got a God who delights in us. We represent God. If children have a cruel dad, they see God as cruel. If they have a mean dad, they see God as mean. If they have a distant dad, they see God as distant. EQ, the emotional quotient, is more important than IQ. But RQ, Harvard University brought out the resilient quotient. It's hope built on reality. It's meaningfulness of life. It's innovative survival. And now they've added physical exercise because of the endorphins that get released. That is the Christian Judeo family message. That happens naturally in a family. Being a dad in 2013, boys need respect. Your son is longing to hear from you. You've got what it takes, mate. That's why intimacy for a boy is wrestling. I've got a friend, he's got 4 sons. Every Thursday they have the all-in wrestling. He high-fives every boy with the words, it starts in laughter and it ends in tears, but it ain't going to be me. One of them always cries. Mothers understand that. You see, girls need to hear you're lovely and you're capable. Girls get their self-esteem, neuroscience now tells us, from their dad. I visited my doctor 11 months ago. I walked into the waiting room. It was packed. The receptionist looked at me and she burst into tears. Now, I know I've got a face like that and I live with it. I went up to her quietly and I said, are you okay? She said, look, my 21-year-old daughter attempted suicide. She nearly got it done. And I said, has she got professional help? And she said, yeah. I said, you keep with professional help, but is her father living with you? She said, yes. I said, you inspire him. He's the answer. He's got to get through to his daughter. You're lovely and you're capable. This guy stepped up. He had guests coming on his boat, and he said to his daughter, look, I'm not happy with the people who are catering. Will you look after it? Morning tea, afternoon lunch, and afternoon tea. She did a brilliant job with her mother's help, and he took her out on a date, and he said, I am so honoured to have you as my daughter. That was class. Then he took her down a trip to the South Island, a business trip, and now she's established as a preschool teacher. Doesn't even think of suicide because a dad stepped up to the position. So important. We have this saying, in our family, we. You know, in our family, we say please and thanks. In our family, if you give your brother or sister a put down, you've got to give them 3 put-ups within 10 minutes or you do their jobs. Boys change behavior very quickly with that, we've found. Okay? In our family, we say please and thanks. We're bringing out a Smoko pack, and it's in New Zealand and Australia, men's breaks are called Smokos. I said to the mayor of one of our cities, it's the Smoko pack without the fags. They reacted, I don't know why, but it's now called the Smoko pack without the cigarettes. And it's just a pack of practical advice for men. And they carry them in their pockets. We want every CEO to have it in his business. We want every truck driver to have it in his business. You see, I interviewed Tony Finders. He is the one who originally wrote the great sitcom of the best the BBC's ever done in success, EastEnders. He was asked by the BBC to do a documentary on the Nativity. They were sick of the smolchy ones, and they thought if they got an atheist to do it, it would have reality. There's only 2 accounts in the Holy Scriptures on the Nativity. He wrote the best documentary that Bishop Tom Wright told me has ever been done on the documentary. And I said to him, what do you think of the wise man? He talked about it. What do you think of Joseph? He talked about, what do you think of Mary? I said, what do you think about Jesus? He said, he's the King of Kings. I said, you go to church? He said, no. I said, how'd you find that? He said, as a writer, I long and I tell my writers, we've got to make sure every story's got the ring of truth. And that story has the ring of truth. I want to encourage you, get out there, keep smiling, be enthusiastic, because a 2-parent family has the ring of truth. I close with a story. An Irishman has immigrated to America. He's got a job of bus driving, and he's driving buses when they're desegregating the high schools. Got a busload of half black students and half white, and a fight breaks out. And being Irish, he's passionate. He said, stop the fighting. I left Ireland because of the fighting. Get off me bus, the lot of you. Go on, get off. So they're all on the cab. He says, I know I've got to get you home, so I'm thinking of giving you an Irish answer. You're no longer black or white. You're all green. Do you understand that? You're all green. I want you back on the bus. I want the light greens up the front and the dark greens down the back. I want to tell you, that's what a nanny state teaches. It's lunacy. Our Western world, the patients are running the asylum. I love the Maori bus driver. This Maori bus driver is driving tourists around New Zealand. He stops. He says, see that ravine there? The Maori warriors held off the British Imperial forces for 6 days, and all the families escaped from the pa. Then he drive on. He said, see that river there? 11 Maori warriors took on 120 British Imperial forces, and all the families escaped. It went on for 5 days, and an American tourist politely asked, excuse me, driver, did the British Imperial forces ever beat the Maori warriors? He said, not while I'm driving this bus.